Hello, hi from COP24 here in Katowice, Poland. I'm Jimin Hwang from the United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security. And here today we're joined by Miss Kehinde Balogun. Hi, Kehinde.
Hi, Jimin.
Hi. Could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes, I work with the Munich Climate Insurance Initiative, hosted at the United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security. Munich Climate Insurance Initiative is a leading think tank on climate risk insurance. And we collect ideas to develop innovative approaches to help manage disaster or climate impact in vulnerable countries. Yeah.
Okay, so then how does insurance help with managing the risk of climate change?
There are actually different ways, but one of the most significant ways would be that it provides quick finance after a disaster impact in order to help with response measures. So, for example, back in the day, you wait for appeals. If a disaster happens in a country and it surpasses the capacity of the government, the government usually launches an international appeal for aid. So either collecting money from people internationally or activating some form of loan in order to respond. Now with insurance, you know the amount of money that is coming to you before. So and you arrange the time as well. So after a disaster impact, there's some form of payment that is come through. You know what you're going to do with it, and that helps to buffer the impact, reduces human suffering, and also helps catalyze response measures to the disaster impacts.
Okay, so for somewhere in really remote areas, if they don't have a lot of income, then how would climate risk insurance help with that if they don't have much income to begin with?
That's a good question, actually. With this insurance, so this type of insurance is calculated based on weather parameters, which basically means monitoring and understanding when it gets too cold or when it gets too hot. What does it affect? What systems does it affect? So this is particularly modeled on agriculture based on food security, and will depend on. So when it gets too cold, what crops are affected, what crops are damaged? Now you can have insurance that is directly sold to the farmer, or you can have insurance that is covered by the government. In this case, a direct sales to the farmer usually, of course, anticipate that the farmer has the money to buy the insurance to get the coverage. But you also have where the most vulnerable to these impacts, who are actually depending on the agriculture, do not have the money, the resources to begin with to buy the insurance. So in this case, usually the government takes the responsibility. So you have different initiatives in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the Pacific, where the government takes the role to cover their own people and buy the insurance. And in this way, you have other measures as well. It is important to also realize that insurance is not the only measure. You have to mix it with other adaptation measures. And it needs to build on existing systems that are in place. So the government also can utilize, when trying to cover their population that are vulnerable to climatic impacts, they can build an existing system. And in this process of also having insurance as a measure, it can help catalyze actually recognizing the gaps in the system. And insurance as a measure to be included in your adaptation measures, showing this gap, because insurance industry is actually very good in risk assessment. That's what their business case is about. And so you have different ways of how vulnerable countries who already maybe have some gaps, including insurance to cover their population, can also show that maybe there are other measures that needs to be put in place. So absolutely, we do not advocate for direct sales to the most vulnerable. We, at that point, will talk to the government for indirect insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about what the vulnerable people can do, but what can we as a general public, what can we do to help with the climate change?
Good question. So climate change is a system problem. We need system approach to address climate change. Climate change cuts across all sectors, not just the agricultural sector. And in this case, particularly MCII also has a concept that is developed with different stakeholders. So we're talking about the banks, we're talking about the insurance regulators, we're talking about the government, different ministries, we're talking about NGOs, we're talking about social services that are also on ground, and also the people, to identify what their needs are in order to be able to develop an insurance mechanism. Everyone is involved. Everyone should do something. When you're trying to address this issue, we all need to come to the table. We all need to discuss. And watching and being a part of the negotiation that is going on here, or actually hearing about it outside, we all have a role to play in the current problem that we're facing. So in this case, I would say that people turn off the lights, for example. If you're not directly intervening and trying to figure out how to limit, within this process, to limit impact and negotiation, just turn off the light. That has an impact. Be more energy efficient conscious. Cycle, walk. It's good for your body. It's good for your health. It's good for your mind. So just be more conscious that there are impacts, and we're facing a big problem which affects all of us, and we all have a role to play in actually making sure that we limit the risks of climate change.
Okay, that's all we have time for now. Thank you for watching us, and we were UNU and MCII. Thank you.
Thank you.